You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Heather Brice.
Hi there, guys.
Heather, tell me a little bit about yourself and, if you want, what you do professionally.
So, I'm a mom of three amazing kids. They're all grown out of the house. I am an area manager with Arbonne International, which is a health and wellness company. And so I basically own my own business in that aspect, have a team that I manage. I am also a competitive ice sculptor, and I have 9 World Ice Art Championship titles with myself and my team from our World Ice Art Championships in Fairbanks here.
I am curious, mostly on the fact of ice sculpting. Okay, how did you get into that, first of all? Because immediately I started thinking of the movie Hot Tub Time Machine, where the guy has a chainsaw and he's just slicing up the side of the ice sculpture.
Right. I have a background in art. Most ice carvers come to the art through the culinary field. But my husband and I are both artists that we did bronze, wood, marble, that sort of thing, and transitioned to ice.
Why is it most of them use the culinary experience to get into an ice sculpture?
They just are exposed to it in culinary school. They do shrimp trays, they do tabletop sculptures a little bit, and a lot of them just fall in love with it, and they end up starting ice exclusive businesses.
So where exactly, how did you decide to come across just ice sculpting in general? I mean, obviously coming from an art background, but how did you even decide to do that? Because that's not an easy, I guess, thing to get into. First of all, I mean, if you think how much it must be to deal with glass, like how hard that is, a crack, anything. Same thing with ice, except you got to worry about melting.
Yep, temperature is always an issue. I was first introduced to ice through my husband. His cousin suggested that I call him and try ice, and so I did. And he mentioned something about the World Ice Art Championships, which is here in our own hometown. It's basically over usually 100 to 150 artists from around the world that come to compete. And I grew up as a competitive swimmer, and so that competition aspect really intrigued me. And so I asked him more about it, kept bugging him to let me be on the team that year. And that was 20 years ago. And we took first place, and I was hooked after that.
How do you even have a competition with that? Is it just whoever can get the sculpture done the fastest and have like the most craziest idea? Or do you have like things that you have to be able to go by? Like everybody's going to make a swan and then some dude makes a dragon and you're like, oh, you're disqualified. And the guy's like, but why?
Nope, it really is. You can choose your I'm blanking on the you can
Design?
choose whatever. Yeah, you can choose your whatever design you want to do. What just speaks to you. Some competitions have a theme. Ours does not. This World Ice Art Championships does not. And we actually have 3 events at ours. So there's they're all laid out differently. We have a 4-person team that is over 6 days. So basically we work 15 to 18-hour days, round the clock almost, and we're given a certain amount of ice, and we take our own tools, we take our own designs, and we create as much as we can with the ice that we're given in the time allotted.
What do you typically consider like your favorite thing to be able to sculpt? I feel like when you're making an ice sculpture, if you're doing a competition, you're given free range or roaming area to kind of, create what you want. You typically want to go with something that you really enjoy.
Yep, absolutely. I enjoy doing animals. A lot of sea life, done some dragons, but I tend to gear towards animals usually.
What type of animal? Come on. A squirrel,
So
a chicken.
I've done squirrels, I've done bunnies, I just completed a seahorse that I got second place with. Um, I've done beavers snowboarding down a hill. just
Beaver snowboarding down a hill.
Yep, I've done walruses, all kinds of stuff.
Do you typically try and think of maybe designing one for an event, or is it just strictly competition?
Generally, it's for competition. Yeah. If we get requests for particular commission projects, usually the customer already has in mind what they want, and so we'll.
And what exactly tools are you working with? Like I'm trying to think from like an ice sculpting perspective. The only ones I've really seen is if you go to a wedding, you go to a fancy restaurant, they got like a giant swan. I mean, that's like the occasional one you see in a movie. For some reason, we always choose a swan at like a wedding scenario. And I'm like, hang on a second. If I'm getting married and I get to pick the ice sculpture, it's not going to be a fucking swan. It's going to be something that's going to be like a three-headed dragon fighting a griffin riding on the back of an eagle.
I just did an owl for my daughter and her boyfriend. Her boyfriend asked me to make something special, and they both like owls, so I did an owl and had a little locket hole in the chest, kind of like the Harry Potter owl, and he put the ring in there, so that was super cool. Um, but yeah, swans. I've never carved a swan personally.
Well, even when you're trying to figure out what animals you want to do or something, does it kind of get frustrating that the fact is that this ice sculpture is not going to last very long? So you put in so much effort and work to be able to create something, and next thing you know, it's just going to melt away. Does that ever get stuck in your head?
It doesn't, because I have yet to do the perfect sculpture, and so that temporal nature is just part of it. I kind of think that the art is in the making. I love the experience. I love the camaraderie that we get with all our carving buddies up here. I love the athletic aspects of it, and that fits right into the nutrition business. Being healthy, being on top of our game, and recovering faster.
How exactly did those coincide?
How do they coincide? It's very physical what we do. I mean, 15, 18 hour a day out in the cold. You figure you're probably burning about 400 calories an hour. Um, Nutrients are super important. Recovery time and muscle recovery is super important. We have
How many muscles are you using? I'm trying to relate it to something because you're talking to someone that doesn't know a damn thing about ice sculpting, so you gotta dumb it down a little bit for me. I mean, I've been snowboarding before, but I work out every day. But the muscles I
yeah,
use snowboarding is completely different than the ones I use in the gym. After a day of snowboarding, I'm like, all legs are all worn out. I'm like, what the hell? I just did legs last week. I was able to do anything. You tell me I can't handle snowboarding, and it's like you're using completely different muscles.
it is completely different muscles, and it's a lot of repetitive motions, and it depends on where you are in the sculpture. So in the beginning, you're moving big chunks of ice out of your way. So you're using your quads, you're using your glutes, you're using your upper back, arms, using ice tongs to move things out of your way. You're doing a lot of shoveling, and then we have something called a nail board, and that is used to flatten a big surface. That'll get your heart rate up like in no time. So good warm up activity if it's 20 below out. Um, so you do it in a figure eight motion, and it gives you resistance too. So there's that, and then we hang on to die grinders all day long. So as the piece gets more and more detailed, you're still using your glutes, your legs, because maybe you're kind of squatted, maybe you're on the ground, but you've got that tool right in front of you. And so the arms and forearms are frequent injury. Neck injuries are real common with ice carvers.
That's gotta get difficult too, just on the factor of like you probably develop things like I know some people that play like something with their hands, such as maybe a skill involved like wood carving or being able to, watchmaking even. People tend to get arthritis at an earlier stage because the amount of work that they have to use with their hands. People that give money at like a bank teller or a casino type job, being able to shuffle around cards, you can develop arthritis in your fingers. Do you see that common with ice sculptors developing certain things in their elbows or their forearms?
Yep, definitely. Frequently you'll see ice carvers grabbing onto the upper arm, or the upper forearm right below the elbow. That's kind of the trigger for chainsaw triggers, hanging onto sanders.
Like for me, I have ADHD. Trying to think of sculpting something for 18 hours. How do you keep in that mindset for so long? I'd be sitting there like half the time, like if I'm trying to make a squirrel or something, I'd be going off like, Why is it so cold outside? Why don't we have heaters? Where are my hand warmers?" Like be having these thoughts where I'll end up losing track of what I'm on. How do you stay consistent? You listen to music?
I listen to music. Yep. I'm a little bit. I think it's more artistic brain than ADD, but definitely have a hard time staying on track. But that's part of the preparation. I mean, I know what elements have to be carved. I know the timeline at this point. I used to struggle with that. I used to not finish in time, but we've got a hot box on site, so I have extra warm gloves anytime the fingers get distracting, you just put warm gloves on. So that's part of it.
And what is your most memorable experience, if I had to ask you? Like maybe carving a certain night? Was it something in the air? I know probably doing that for, maybe 18 hours or something. There's got to be a point where it's just like feels calm and serene, or you get into this fluctuation or emotion or groove that you like feel like shit, like nothing can stop me right now. Like no breaks. We don't need to eat food. We're just gonna work until this is done.
Yep, yep. Don't need to sleep. You do get into that groove. It's usually the night before finish, somewhere around midnight to 1 a.m. Maybe the snow's falling. At least the crystals are flying through the air from everybody working. Um, the setting up here in Fairbanks at the World Ice Art Championships is um, it's like a enchanted forest. And so you hear the saws running, you hear the die grinders, you got your music crews, and you're in the zone. That's what it is. You just get focused. And
If I had to ask you what's probably the hardest thing about ice sculpting, what would you say? I mean, is just the fact of just the patience or the monotonous over and over again? I mean, for me, doing the same thing over and over again gets very, very difficult. I like to change it up.
yep, I'll design my pieces so I'm not getting stuck in that rut. I can't stand that repetition. Um, Being cold is probably the biggest downside for me. And when things go wrong, that's super frustrating, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, being cold plays a huge factor too. You got to think when it gets cold out, your hands start to not work very properly. That makes it very difficult to hold the tool. That makes it very difficult to do an ice sculpture in the correct way. Next thing you know, you're making a beaver's like tooth or something, and you end up chipping off a piece. And now the beaver, looks like he got punched in the face.
Yeah, that was a challenge this year because the weather was so cold this year. We had pretty much -20 almost every day, and
Jesus.
I know it's hardcore. Um, and the ice is different at that temperature. It's much harder. The chisels almost act dull in the ice, so that's bizarre. And when the ice is warm, they act more like they're cutting butter. Um, and so that's a challenge too because you can chip things off. But I remember your question. You asked about tools. I'm super spoiled. My husband actually invents ice carving tools, and so he's probably invented over 500 different tools for ice at this point. We have an online tool store that we sell, and I ship all over the world, but they're specifically for ice. And so we have everything from chisels to the specific way we sharpen wood chainsaw chains and lots of specialized bits.
Now, how do you even try and practice something like this? Do you just pull ice cubes out of the freezer and try and do something? Like it's got to be difficult considering that how much that ice has to cost to even be brought to you.
Well, we're also lucky. We have an ice museum that we work year round out of at Chena Hot Springs Resort, which is about 60 miles outside of Fairbanks. So we spend about half our week out there. We have 3 manufactured commercial grade ice block makers that the staff out there harvest for us. So we have a ready available stock of ice. For the championships, it's pulled out of a gravel pit and they store it in sawdust pits. So we have that for the early season, and then for the competition itself, they harvest new ice out of the gravel pit. But say you're somebody at home and you just want to try ice carving, I always say get a bucket, find a deep freezer. If you're lucky enough to be in cold weather, just set it outside. It's not going to be crystal clear like the stuff we carve, but get a couple cheap wood chisels and maybe an ice pick. Even you can do a lot with simple tools just to play and introduce yourself to ice.
What do you find it the most interesting about ice sculpting in general? For me, I would look at it and probably wonder the same thing, like maybe a viewer would want, is the same thing of looking at everybody's different style and techniques and being able to see somebody create something out of their mind. Like when somebody creates a painting, much like with art, um, when they're just creating random free play, nobody's giving them any jurisdiction or any grounds to work off of. They just randomly toss something up on a canvas out of their mind. It really shows a lot about a person.
It does. Yeah, and it I love seeing new creative designs come out. Pretty much everything has been done in ice, as far as materials and subjects, but what the person interprets and how they design the piece, because it's a lot of engineering as well, is pretty fascinating.
All right, is this something you want to do forever? Like, is this something? Is it more of a passion project? Like, what do you want? Like, what are you trying to end here? You're talking about the beginning with a bit of the health stuff. Is that what you're trying to go into? And this is just kind of a form of relaxation.
I love the competitions, and I will do the competitions until I can't anymore. That's my passion. Um, the health and wellness has allowed me to continue that because I'm already 51 now. So I'm not spring chicken, but I feel better than I did 10 years ago, because of the nutrition. And so I'm kind of on a split track right now, but I see myself doing the health and wellness more and more as my team grows, and I'm able to share. It's compounding, helping others, and that's what I'm seeing with this health and nutrition. It just has such an impact on people, and their lifestyle. And
I studied nutrition extensively. You're heading into my category now. I might not know a thing about ice sculpting, but I definitely know a thing about working out and eating right.
hmm
When it comes to nutrition, though, it's really strange because I've always kind of brought this up with the idea of food reviews. If you ever look at like food reviewing is becoming very, very popular because I believe it's on the factor of we're doing these diet trends and it's all very, very flip floppy. Some of it works for some people and some of it works for others. Not everybody is exactly the same. Our genetic makeup is completely different. That means if I eat a biscuit and you eat that same biscuit, you might have allergic reaction to that biscuit or it might put on more weight on you than it would for me. You know what I mean? These factors play into a thing, but there's a movement now. And what I mean political movement is the whole vegan thing. This is just a diet trend that's going like there was keto, there was Atkins way back in the day. There were all these types of things you're supposed to eliminate. Yes, that works, but the way everybody's doing it now is like being very, very political with their view. Like, "Oh, I'm full vegan, bro. I don't do this. You're disgusting if you're not vegan." I'm like, "Hang on a second. Some people don't like vegetables and can't really eat vegetables."
you're right, and that's where our ideology differs. I mean, we with Armand, we tout healthy living. Whether you're a vegan, whether you eat meat, whether you eat wild game, incorporate those healthier options into your life and make a lifestyle change.
Well, it's anything that makes you feel good. I mean, for so long we've lived this life like, "Oh, I feel like crap. Go to the doctors." "Oh, it's probably because you're not working out." Have you ever thought about what's fueling your body? You're putting in McDonald's every single day. It's not gonna be that good of a machine. I mean, that's like tossing oil in the tracks, I would say. But like when you're looking at like nutrition, everything, your cells in your body, they die and they create new ones based on everything that you kind of consume. Literally, you are what you eat. That whole expression, that's a real thing. Um, it's really strange to see it how people are dealing with certain medical conditions. I believe that you're seeing a rise of people that are getting major diseases such as like gastrointestinal diseases, such as certain types of forms of like diabetes or other things of this sort when it comes to body regulation, such as things with the liver, things with the intestines. Is serious organ damage going on the basis of like it's becoming so popular now. I think it's because of the way we've been eating for so long. We've been eating like the American diet, I would say. At least a lot of people have been, and they're experiencing a severe amount of issues. But where the cure in it all is not in surgery, it's not in a type of medicine, it's in a certain type of different lifestyle change when it comes to what you eat. I know so many people that have gone vegan and it's completely bettered their life. I know so many people that have went from vegan to an all primal diet where they're eating nothing but meat. Next thing you know, you see a dramatic change. It's crazy to see how we're like just finding out all these types of things. It's like every 10 years we get new information that completely changes the way we originally thought.
Instant gratification when the media is so right now. We get overbound with information that this is
Well, where do you see with all these diet trends and stuff? What do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years? I mean, we're living a lifestyle now where people want to know where their food's coming from. I have a giant problem when it comes to um I guess insecticides or whatever what is it? It is insecticides, I'm pretty sure. That gets sprayed into our crops. Like that's a big issue. Like you got to think they're putting chemical in the food that you're consuming. Yes, I understand the benefit of it, the fact that, insects won't destroy the harvest, so we'll have more food, but we don't have a problem with food as much as we did in the past. We have a overabundance of food right now, and that's becoming an issue where people are overeating and they're looking for that emotional stimulus that food can give you.
Yep, and the foods they're eating are not nutritionally sound. They're just fillers, basically. And those chemicals and those sprays are definitely going to make a difference. And that's what we encourage is, um, avoid GMOs. Try to find organic. I know organic's kind of under scrutiny too because their regulations aren't very strict. But it's better than the alternative. And just incorporating free range free range chicken, free range, non hormones. Just avoid the extras. Just kind of go back to basics.
Now, what exactly is the basics, though?
Macronutrients, complex carbs, good source of protein. Um, what am I missing? The vegetables, the fruits. Just from the ground up, and then avoiding when you can the chemical mass production places.
Even if we talk about the main thing back in the day, what was it? It was that plate, the little plate, like it shows you what you're supposed to have: a portion of meat, a portion of protein, a portion of vegetables, a portion of carbs. All these types of things were a major thing that was taught in schools. That's completely thrown out the window. It's gone a whole flip-floppy way where now they're afraid to even teach that in school because of the basis of now you're judging the way someone wants to eat. That's affecting somebody. That's bullying. I'm like, hang on a second. I remember sitting in cooking class for like an hour learning about the fucking calorie counting plate where at the bottom it had like 2 hours of exercise was the fork. And now you're telling me we can't teach that because of the fact is it's going to hurt somebody's feelings. I'm like, it's knowledge though. It might not be something that someone has to religiously follow by, but it still should be taught.
Yeah, I mean, but teachers have to be flexible. They have to realize that everybody has different ways of living. I mean, up here in Alaska, you see a lot of Native Americans that are, they hunt, and there's a lot of people that don't do meat. So everybody's got to just be more accepting. They
Yeah,
can,
but do you hear what I'm saying is they're not teaching it at all. These nutrition classes, these cooking classes that were average in basically school education system, instead of going to college or getting a nutrition class, these things were taught from like first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth grade. Whenever you start to get to do a cooking class, they're not teaching anything about the essential nutrients anymore. It's just a fucking recipe to make. That's not teaching anybody. That's not warning anybody about anything. That's not teaching any future generations of nutrition, or at least the basis of it. Doesn't mean you have to follow their guidelines, but you should still have an introduction into it.
oh, I agree about an introduction. I don't know. I've been disconnected with the school system for a while. My kids are grown now, so I haven't paid attention to that. But and I've been delving into nutrition like crazy myself, so I guess I need to pay more attention to that. But I do know that our physicians have not been schooled in nutrition very much, and that's something that I'm learning a lot about. We have a panel of nutritionists that Arbonne confers with, and I think there's people are looking for healthier options, and they're starting to realize that food is that source.
Yeah, well, if you look at just the medical industry in general, there's a giant problem when it comes to it. I know a lot of holistic healing places and a lot of alternative education sources that are people like yourself that are starting an organization or doing something like this that actually go and find out the information and realize that the people with the lab coats that are supposed to be paid to have a doctorate's degree don't actually know as much as we'd like to think. And this is when I bring in the point is they are people. We look at them because they wear a lab coat and they carry the title doctor, but it's just a piece of paper that gave them that. Anybody can go to school, slide right through for it if you have enough money to go through and then get a doctorate degree. I know of a lot of people where I'm sitting there talking to them and they're not really giving me a whole lot to go by. And I'm sitting there having a deep conversation like, I never thought of it that way. It's like, what the fuck? I don't even, I have an associate's degree. You have a doctor's degree. You went to school like 6 years longer than I did. You're telling me you don't know as much as I do? Well, I know some things. I'm like, I get that, but it's also finding out your own information too. For so long, we lived this lifestyle of doctors giving pills, doctors doing this, let me prescribe you something and that'll cure that because it has been a fix for so long. But that's not the way we should be living. It's the same reason, like back in the day, when I was a child, it was so much easier to get fast food. Nobody understood that fast food was that bad for you. And then there was a bunch of documentaries that came out, like Super Size Me, all these crazy things that these giant fast food companies have been trying for so long to cover up. It's a giant issue going on. I mean, I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's convenience. Okay, a mother of three getting fast food to feed her kids because she works 2 jobs and doesn't have enough time to cook at home. I just think that's fucked up the way life is then. Because if she has to work 2 jobs and can't sit down with her kids, much like yourself wanting to sit down with your kids when you're younger, that's one of the biggest experiences ever. Like that's one of the most memorable ones that they're going to remember, having a family dinner, having pizza night, having Chinese takeout or something. That might not be a healthy option, but that's experience. That's food time. That's family time. Now it gets turned to a mother coming home before she rushes out back to her second job and just drops a thing of burgers on the table.
Mhm. That's it. That's the other beauty of this business with Arbonne is that we give that opportunity to other people that they can maybe drop that second job with the added income and the convenience of the product, so that their kids are getting better nutrition. I mean, you can make a protein shake loaded with fruits and vegetables and send them out the door in much better shape than a bowl of cereal and a glass of orange juice. I mean, max their sugars out and fry their little poor brains.
That's even the part, like the reason why you got fast food in general. If you're a parent, I mean, you just gave them that chicken tender meal in the back, and next thing you know, your kid's passed out asleep after eating it. It's a giant sugar rush right to their body. They don't know what to do with it, so they just crash.
No, no.
I think, like if you look at the prices of things too, like organic is some of the most expensive stuff compared to the regular cheap stuff you can buy, like the stuff that is really, really bad for you, such as like cereal and stuff. With this coronavirus thing, I went to the grocery store this morning and you know what happened?
Tell me.
I went to the cereal aisle. You know what was all gone?
The cereal, the sugar
All
cereal.
the sugar cereal. There was literally Kashi, Raisin Bran, all the really super healthy, good stuff for your body was still left up on the shelf. All the Fruity Pebbles, all the everything that you would consider that has like 30 grams of sugar and it was gone. I'm like, okay, that seems
I
like
noticed that too.
it's backwards. Like, what the hell?
It
Like,
is.
if you're trying to survive and you get as much toilet paper as possible, like it's liquid gold or something, you want to get the healthy things that are going to last. But all the crappy junk food was gone. People started stocking up on tuna. I've been eating tuna for 20 fucking years. Nobody ever bought tuna until this happened. Now I don't have food.
There's our vitamin aisle was full and the produce still had a surplus, and yeah, the junk food aisles were empty. Just craziness.
Literally, the employees were telling me, like, we don't have to really worry too much about the produce. They bought the cabbage, but we got enough bananas, we got enough all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, everybody's buying all the trashy shit. Like if you go down, the syrup aisle, if you go down all these other types of aisles, it's all gone. All the chips, Doritos, everything. I'm like, what the hell is going on, people? Like, you understand that if there is an apocalypse or if there is a giant mass outbreak, the things that are going to last, the non-perishables, are going to either be the canned items, or if you get some produce, maybe you'll have a healthier option for the time being able to fend off this virus by boosting your immune system.
Yep, that's the key is the immune system. You've got to boost the immune system. And that's what I'm pumping for my clients and my team right now. I'm saying get the products that might be hard to get. We've got this great greens balance product. The vegetables, eventually people are going to figure out if this continues. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it continues for a long term, I mean, we still have 4 feet of snow outside. We're not going to have gardens for a while. Just you need the things that are going to help you sustain and keep you healthy so that you're not passing on things to other people.
Are you trying to start this into like a business, like maybe owning your own kind of healing place in general?
Oh, well, the way it's a social marketing company, so I have my own business. I don't have all the headache associated. I don't have to do all the office work. I have a home office team that does it for me. So, all I have to do is concentrate on keeping my clients um, happy with what they have, keep orders coming in, and make sure my team is duplicating.
What do you typically try and find with a client in general? Like, how do you typically come about getting them the nutrition plan that they need? Seems like you would have to learn a little bit about them.
Yeah, we do. We have kind of a basic program, but I definitely cater it to each person. So we have the 30 days of healthy living, and they purchase the kit. We set up the guidelines, and then we contact them frequently for the first couple of weeks to make sure that things are going smoothly. If they have questions, if they have sensitivities, and it's an elimination process. So we figure out what might not be serving them: gluten, soy, whey, dairy, coffee, alcohol, all the hard. I get groans on those, but it really does make a difference. And it's just 30 days, and then usually people feel so much better that they continue, and you do see a lifestyle change, and it's really remarkable how many people have been impacted and positively with this program.
It takes time to break a bad habit, and sadly, the bad habit is living an unhealthy lifestyle, such as drinking a lot of soda, drinking a lot of, anything, eating a lot of bad food, Big Macs, fast food. I cut out fast food probably 5 years ago, and I haven't looked back. I ate it a little bit when I was starting the gym, still eating a bag of Doritos in one sitting back in the day when you were in high school and you could eat anything and not gain a pound. I know I sound like I'm 40 coming from that, but no, I'm 20 years old. I'm 22 years old, and I have not had fast food or any type of unhealthy snack in a long time. If I ate any of that type of stuff, my body wouldn't know what to do. It'd probably shut down. Um, I eat a lot of clean fish. I eat a lot of vegetables, salads every meal. I do have I guess, a little bit of a secret addiction when it comes to cereal. I'm a huge cereal fanatic, basically a handful. I like to eat it dry. But if I eat red meat, my body doesn't know what to do. It hasn't had it in forever. I've built up a tolerance to it and I don't need it. But I mean, yes, I get it. Carbs are amazing. Bread is amazing. But I also started doing things like that. What kills the craving for bread is a rolled up cabbage leaf, that crunch. You put your meat inside of a cabbage leaf, make what's called a raw taco. You roll it up. Next thing you know, bam, you got tacos and it kills the craving for bread. After 30 days, your body doesn't need it anymore. Those 30 days are rough as hell, but once you get past them, you feel 1,000 times better that you're not eating this type of crap that's reacting to your body differently. Because people don't understand what gluten is. Gluten is just shit that ends up getting stuck in your stomach like gum.
For me, gluten is a joint inflammation, and that being out in the cold, that was my biggest takeaway from my first round.
What exactly have you cut out that is kind of you've seen a benefit towards your ice sculpting?
Gluten, soy, anything with soy is a trigger, and it's in so much. Um, I've cut out coffee. I don't do coffee anymore. Um, Most sugars, I'll do pure cane sugar a little bit, but in limited amounts. And I was a big sugar addict, so that was probably a major one.
All right, what's your sugar addict thing?
Oh, I was this was 4 years ago. My biggest one was the red vines.
Okay, Twizzlers or Red Vines.
Yeah, they were bad.
That's a good one. Did you like the black licorice one?
Not very often.
All right, good. So you're a normal person.
Hmm.
All right, because I know some people like that, and I just look at it like you have no taste if you like those things. But I see. I used to have like when I first started working out, it was chocolate peanut M&Ms. I could kill a 5 pound bag of those things in one sitting, and I wouldn't gain a pound. But looking at the candies now, like my whole thing changed when I was little. When my grandfather took me to a movie theater, and I would get snow caps, something that's good, like the good chocolate. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know what snow caps are.
Yep, I remember it there.
Okay. Well, eating one of those, you'd be done with the box of candy by the first preview. Like it wasn't a snack that you could sit there and chew the whole entire time. And I remember the next time I went to the movie theaters, my grandpa goes, "Get the Juji fruits." I'm like, fucking juji fruits? Like, do I want mouth poison? Like, that is the most difficult candy to eat. Like, one piece is like chewing, like, I don't know, rubber. And he's like, just do it. And I, okay, okay. This
Makes my
box,
jaw hurt.
literally, yes, it makes my jaw hurt too. Literally, I got half a box through the whole entire movie and saved the rest of it because you're picking bits and little tiny pieces of it out of your teeth way past dinner. That man was a genius.
Funny.
Like these types of things, like, I mean, that's the amazing like thing about really nutrition in general. I try and tell people, like, yes, I've cut out a lot of stuff. I mean, I was at a point where I was eating a can of tuna a day with a stick of celery as my meal. I was very, very lean. I still am very lean, but you also have to enjoy little things in life as well. It's taken me a long time to get to that conclusion, but it's not about like, oh, let me eat like shit for 6 days a week and then eat healthy one day. That's not going to work for you. More like eat healthy almost every single meal, but don't forget you can have a little fun. You can have some ice cream. You can have these types of things too. But if it starts to affect your body in such a way where you can't physically move, then maybe don't do it as much, or maybe cut it out for a little bit and see if you get better. I mean, what do you typically see as a benefit in some of your clients?
Um, Weight loss is a big one. Most of my guide clients, I see the acid reflux reduce in the first week. Um, Joint pain, bloating. Bloating's a big one. The tummy bloat.
Yeah, that's a big factor too. I eat a lot of raw vegetables and I'll get that bloat. Like, it's usually why I tell people about like a six-pack picture I have on my Instagram or something. It's not to show off, but it's to show people like this is what happens when you work out for 2 hours and you're running on nothing. So you're shredded down to your smallest point. And then I'll take a picture afterwards after I have like a meal or something. Notice the six-pack is gone because it's food. That's what happens. It's not there 24/7. People think they're gonna walk around with a six-pack like a bodybuilder all the time. I'm like, no, they work their ass off to get to that point in that day for that picture. Then they eat a meal and it's completely gone, and then they look like a normal person again. It's why I think it's 6 or 7 months back or something. Jason Momoa, Aquaman. Yeah, everybody knows
Mhm.
that guy. Yeah, you know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about. Hey, I'll admit, I know when a guy's handsome. I'm not, I'm just saying he is a good looking dude. But when it comes to, he got a lot of flack because on his birthday weekend, he went with his family on vacation and he had cake and beer. And then someone snapped a picture of him without his shirt on. And they were like, oh, Jason Momoa's got a dad bod. It's like, what? And then he responded to it like, I don't keep that like that movie figure all year round. I like to enjoy my life. I like to hang out with my family. I like to have cake and I like to enjoy these moments. But we live so long that you need to idolize these models and these things that are completely unrealistic.
Yep, I learned that a little bit with my friend down in Anchorage. She's on my team, and she's a bodybuilder, and she was going through the cut phase, and that was mind blowing to see that discipline and what she had to go through to get to that stage body.
I mean, it's terrible.
Hardcore.
You get cold all the time. You want to talk about being cold. I mean, I was
Right.
I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, I was working out twice a day because I just didn't have a job, so I just committed myself to it, and I got down to 2-3% body fat, and it was not fun. You're wearing I mean, even as I'm talking to you right now, it's 70 degrees outside, but I'm wearing a nice winter jacket, not like one of those big puffed up zipper ones, but like a nice heavy hoodie, only because I can get cold very easily. I stay around 5 or 6% body fat, I really do have like a bit of a physical addiction when it comes to it, but it's more on the lines of we care as people too much about judgment of others. I constantly care about what people think, and I've been working so hard to be able to destroy that. But we've built up this society mind where if you don't have a six pack, you're not perfect. If you don't have this, you're not perfect. And honestly, I'm sick of all the bullshit with it because I look back in the day, David Hasselhoff in Baywatch didn't have a single ounce of muscle on his body. That man had a feminine figure, I would say. There was no muscle definition at all, but he was what they called handsome back then. Our whole mindset has changed ever since Arnold, ever since all these bodybuilding got pretty big, and ever since the six-pack picture hit. This is like what guys or girls have to feel like they have to have a perfect ass, they have to have perfect biceps, they have to have perfect this, and if they go off the routine, they get a lot of shit for it. It's like, we're people. we need to live our lives too and not just be miserable all the fucking time.
Yep, and you've also got to keep it in perspective, not to worry about what other people think. If they're not paying your bills, who cares?
Yeah,
We
like
focus a lot of that on, our mind development, our personal development with our one too, and it's so important to be happy with what your goals are, what your personal goals are, how you feel.
would you say the biggest thing is not even really focusing on nutrition as much, but more on the mental well-being? It seems like once you get your mental state in check, your nutrition will follow.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and once you're healthy, things fall into place. It's not the diet that affects everything. I mean, the food obviously what you put in there affects.
Yeah,
um
but it leads to the mental aspect of it leads to eating disorders. Leads to people compulsively eating, leads to people binge eating, leads to people becoming anorexic based on, physical flaws or something. And also the factor of, you know, when you're not mentally right, you're going to be completely thrown off food wise and everything.
it's true. It definitely, the mental comes in too big in this business for sure.
But with even your counseling and everything too, and trying to being able to teach your clients a better way of kind of living a life too. What do you typically try and show them, like from your own perspective that you learned? I mean, even with cutting out so many different things and noticing the change, so you saying that to somebody is not really they're not that's not going to sink in.
No, you've got to make it relatable to what they're experiencing. So I always ask them questions. What do you struggle with? What would you like to see differently? If you could change anything about your skin or your body, what would it be? Um, and usually that gives you insight into what they're struggling with, and you can gear the program towards that. A lot of times it's health issues that come up. Or I have, been struggling with my thyroid levels are up, and my blood pressure's been up, or my A1C has been high. So um, just everybody's different, and you gotta identify what their goals are, and how to help them best.
Yeah, being able to understand a little bit more. I think this was really needed in the medical industry, especially. Doctors don't have enough time for their patients. They don't have enough time for one-on-one. You get more time with your nurse than you do your doctor. He's prescribing you things, but doesn't know exactly what's going on into your life. You could be suffering from severe pain in your stomach or your chest or your heart, and they're going to give you a medication for acid reflux or something. It's like, is that what it is, or is it amount of stress? Is that person dealing with a huge amount of anxiety and depression because their life isn't just turning out? Having that little bit of information and key insight into someone's life is it gives you a better diagnosis of what the person is dealing with.
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't have the time. Most of them don't, that's for sure.
Well, I really appreciate you coming out and doing the podcast, Heather. I want to give you here a minute at the end to be able to promote anything you want to promote, such as your Instagram page or any organization you want people to look up.
Awesome. I appreciate it. It's been fun talking. So yeah, Heather, let's see, it's Brice_Heather at Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook as well. Um, and yeah, our tool company, if you want to play with ice carving tools, it's stevebricetools.com. And come check out the World Ice Art Championships at icealaska.org.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode Out of the Blank podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode.